I want to talk a little bit about our moderator, if it'll only take a few moments, but he's a lovely man and he's done a lot of good things. And let me just tell you what they are. He's an organizational, first of all, it's John Teuton, PhD, who is an organizational psychologist whose career spans 40 years of business consulting and includes a broad spectrum of clients, including 50 organizations and major nonprofits. His services include executive assessment, leadership, talent development, and performance management. He continues to consult to organizations in the public and private sectors, and for the last 15 years has also served as a counselor at Penn's Office of Career Services, providing career planning and career transition services to graduate students and alumni. Dr. Teuton has received his bachelor's degree in anthropology and English literature from Temple University in 1971 and taught at Germantown Friends School before attending Bryn Mawr College, where he earned his doctorate in human development in 1982. He is a licensed psychologist in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Please take over, John.
Thank you very much. Today we have a big but a very, very exciting task. Thanks to the Alumni Office, we've connected to 4 tremendous alums who have had great careers, full lives. And what we want to do is, first of all, have each one of them talk a little bit about that part of their life. And then we're going to have a more interactive discussion about the theme of this presentation, which is how do you reinvent yourself in your 70s, 80s, and beyond. The first of our 4 panelists, I'm not going to introduce Gordon with all the information that I know about him. I'm going to let him carry on himself. A graduate of the Wharton School, a Canadian, which is terrific. Penn draws from all over the place. And without further ado, Gordon, if you can start just a little bit about your background, what excites you now, where things might be going in the near future.
I'm very happy to have been asked to appear on the panel, but of course I realize that the stories of everyone in the room is every bit as interesting or more interesting than those that I have. When I left Penn, I got involved in a new area of life insurance. Was a pioneer in what we call financial reinsurance, which was using reinsurance, that's insurance between companies, for financial management or financial engineering. And that was kind of fun, but things do change, and our company was taken over, and they left town, and I opted to stay where I was, or at least to keep the family there, and I went into the international field and ended up spending about 25 years in changing the former communist system to the free market system, and that was a challenge, interesting, and I got to see a lot of the world. Of course, what we're talking about in things that we do it's interesting in how you measure success. And you can measure success in terms of the number of dollars raised, the number of people involved, and so on. But I think the interesting thing is to judge by who and how many people you influenced. Our chairman put a symbol or an ensign of some kind for each of us. The one that he put up is the pennant for the English-speaking Rotary Club in Moscow, to which I belonged when I was in Moscow for 2 years. And I think why he chose that is he was interested in a specific story. One of the things that we did was supply hearing aids for young children. And just north of Moscow is a center where they bring the children who are deaf and blind from all over Russia. And their government doesn't have the same healthcare budget that we do in North America. And you can understand this. Russia is a huge country, the biggest in the world. Canada is the second biggest, but Russia is almost twice as big as Canada. That's a big country. And the gross national product of Russia is exactly the same as what it is in Canada. So you get thinking about that, you can say, well, why do they have intercontinental ballistic missiles, and why do they have carrier fleets around the world on a budget that big? And you may find out why they don't have enough money for hearing aids for those kids. And when they took one of my colleagues took new hearing aids up, the advanced kind that send signals from one ear to the other, this little girl could hear for the very first time. And the Rotarian's wife was singing to her. So what a touching story, and I think that's why I got that symbol. But in Afghanistan, I got a group together and we held a gala evening for the National Gallery of Art there, which needs a lot of help. And yes, we did get the money to replumb the place and so on, but one of the Afghan elite came to me after and said, the greatest thing you did was demonstrate that there are people who will have altruism, that will do things for no personal gain to himself, to his family, or to his tribe. And that's an idea that's totally foreign in Afghanistan. And another one in Mongolia, I got involved in an art show in which the paintings were all applications of Western art to Mongolia. Those of you who are into art can go to the Philadelphia Museum of Art and see Duchamp's nude descending a staircase. Well, that, according to this little booklet I wrote for them as a theme for their show, that came because he had been there and did camels descending a sand dune, and the painting was reversed. And so there's 24 paintings, each one based on some famous painting in the Western world. It was wonderful for the artist. She became a celebrity, and she was very poor before. She no longer is. But what it really did is there were students who went every day to see that, kept going back, because this was the first time that they could ever see that Western art, modern art, could apply to Mongolia. So yes, there's measuring success is difficult to do, but it's an interesting process. And it brings you to the idea of altruism, and altruism is the greatest international movement of the last 100 years, and by and large it is missed by the press. The press reports every day things that are going on. When we were here, nuclear war was inevitable. Today, well, yeah, we still have lots of wars that are about to come. They report natural disasters and so on, but what they don't report is the incredible growth in altruism. In the firm I was with, they decided to offer retirement packages for anyone 55 and over in the formula. And one fellow I knew was having lunch with his friends in his department, and he said, well, I looked it over, but I decided not to take the offer because I have a few good years left. And one of his colleagues looked up and said, well, Jim, when are they going to start? Well, I throw that out to you because no one remembers your successes from 20 years ago. So don't try to live on your laurels from the past. Instead, get involved today and achieve new things, because achievement is essential for our self-esteem. And you should seek achievement in altruism so that retirement doesn't have to mean indolence.
Next presenter is Murray Eckel, graduate from the School of Law in 1959. Full disclosure, that's my high school graduation date. So I'm right at the median of the four of you, right in the middle of the four of you. And I'll let Murray make a few remarks about his past and present, maybe where some of the shifts he's seen in his career. And I also, not to presage, but maybe a little bit of a story about early days in the law school at Penn. So go ahead, Murray, and I think there's a mic there for you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have a couple of things. First of all, I'm a lawyer and I have to act as one. So the first thing I have is a disclaimer. I have no idea why I'm here. I haven't reinvented anything about myself. I've been on the same track since I was 12 years old. And the event that led me at age 12 to want to become a lawyer might be of interest to you. I went to a summer camp, and it was in a bunk of boys. There were a number of us, about 15. And my counselor is a name that some of you in the Philadelphia area may recognize, Marvin Albert, who was a judge in Philadelphia. He had just completed his first year at Penn Law, and he brought with him to camp case books. And case books in law school, for those of you who don't know, are a collection of cases on the particular subject that's being taught. So Marv brought a case book, and it was a tradition for the counselors at the end of the day to tell a story to the kids, because you had active 12-year-old boys, you had to calm them down if you wanted them to go to sleep. So instead of telling a story, Marvin would read a case to us, and we would pretend to be the jury, and we would take a vote as to how we would find either for or against whatever the case may have been. And then we would discuss it. I was so fascinated by what transpired in that evening and those evenings that I decided I was going to be a lawyer. And I never swerved from that path. I am still practicing today, partially retired. I work 3 days a week. I love the law and everything about it. So I was approved and I was appointed judge, and I was a judge in Delaware County in 1977. And it was a marvelous experience. First of all, it was the easiest job I ever had. And other judges don't like to hear you say that. It was easy for me because I had been a trial lawyer. Trial lawyers understand the needs of their clients, their goals. They understand the limitations on what lawyers can and can't do. They understand the courtroom. So when a trial lawyer becomes a judge, he has a tremendous leg up on any person who becomes a judge who was not a trial lawyer. The general public doesn't really know that. I think logically it makes a lot of sense, but it's not something that people think about when they go to elect judges. So again, it was the easiest job I ever had. But on the negative side of it, it was the loneliest I ever was. Why would a judge be lonely? Well, if you come from a law firm and you're accustomed to interacting with other lawyers as I was, and by the way, I really was intertwined in everything legal. I was a member of the Board of Governors of the Pennsylvania Bar Association. I was president of the Delaware County Bar Association. I have interesting stories I can tell you about that. But when you become a judge, the office gets a great deal of respect, as it should. So even my partners were hesitant to have lunch with me. They didn't want to be seen talking with me because it would create an appearance that maybe there was a fix going on. So, and other lawyers, all my friends at the Delaware County Bar Association sort of shunned me, not in the negative way, but they just, to protect the dignity of the bench, stayed away from me. So I found it to be a lonely job. But it was certainly a great experience. I enjoyed it. And I certainly found it to be a very worthwhile experience because I did get business from it afterwards. Everybody likes to be a judge, likes to know a judge. I even had jurors come and ask me to represent them because they saw me as a judge, and now I'm back practicing law, so they thought that would be a good thing. So I think I was reinvented by having served as a judge for a year.
Next person to talk a little bit about her background and her career and her time at Penn, going the wrong direction. There we go, is Ann Klein. And I think maybe a little bit of a different story about early days at Penn than Murray shared.
We have all come a long way, and I have a slightly different story to tell than these gentlemen have told. When I entered the Wharton School in 1960, discrimination wasn't really something that we saw, but it was kind of in my face. I was the only woman in most of my classes, and in all of my classes actually, except for the seminars, the large conference rooms. And I think the attitudes were there. The attitudes of harassment were really, really there. I didn't think we realized at the time what we were facing as women, and I do believe that we've now come to know what discrimination is all about and what I call attitudinal harassment. When I ask the women the questions, and I wrote this book, On the Cusp, The Women of Penn 64, and
it's at the bookstore, just so you know.
Well,
you can get it elsewhere too.
It's also a little cheaper on Amazon, much cheaper on Amazon, and my husband is here, and it's listed at $12.99 on Amazon, but I can give it to you for $12.
Guess what she became after she left Penn?
End of my commercial. Yeah, the Wharton School marketing was really where I was. Oh, there's Leslie. Hi, how are you? I think most of the women included in the book are here today, so this is wonderful. It was really a rough time for me that I was not permitted to major in corporate finance, which is what I really wanted to do. And my professor in finance said, no woman will ever get a degree in corporate finance as long as I'm department chair. So I went hand in glove to the marketing department. And yes, I graduated with a BS in economics from the Wharton School, but my major was marketing and not finance. So that is my story from Wharton, and it was, I think I was pretty stupid in those days because I didn't really see it that way. My mother always had said, if Ann were only a girl, and I think she knew more than I did, but my father was really intent on my going to Wharton, and so that's what I did. What I did when I was at the oil company was I was managing a staff of 7 during the Iranian gasoline shortage. And because I was so good at it, I was promoted to be manager of executive communications. Well, I only had the chairman, the president, executive vice presidents, and senior VPs and vice presidents, but I had 13 of them. And I kept them out of their offices because that's what I was told to do. Editorial board meetings with the New York Times and with the Washington Post and Christian Science Monitor. However, I was promoted for nothing because there was no professional ladder for me to rise above. So I was told, you probably ought to leave and see if you can find something else. I also was told that I got married very late. I also was told that if I had a family, I could just stand at the back of the line and get ready, the men would pass me. And so when I finally decided to have a family, it was really something I discovered that I couldn't have a family because I had gotten too old. So it was kind of interesting, and I started my own business then, and I had my own business for 35 years. And I will tell you that the firm I had was a crisis and issues preparedness and communication firm, and we did really well. And so that's my story on how I met. I can go on and on and on, and I could bore you to tears with a ton of stories. But I think there are some other things that John wanted to talk about, so I have more stories to tell.
And so, last panelist, Carolyn McGrory from the School of Nursing, and I might say at the outset, a BSN first 4-year degree program here at the School of Nursing. And this isn't exactly the pin, this isn't exactly the medallion, but she had a hand in designing the medallion for that graduating class.
Good afternoon. It was interesting to hear Ann's story. My class was 2 years before hers, and we had the first one woman in Wharton and the first one woman in the Town School of Engineering. We didn't really realize that that was something we weren't allowed to do before that. At any rate, my story of reinventing is a little different. I reinvented and reinvented over and over and over again. Things just sort of came my way, for which I was and have been very grateful. So after Penn, I started living a life. I married my high school sweetheart. He went in the service. We spent 6 years in the Air Force together. We had children. Well, we made a funny, crazy decision to go to Berlin, West Germany, and live behind the Iron Curtain so he could be home at night. We were 120 miles behind the Iron Curtain and surrounded by Russian tanks. Our children went to a German school. My husband was now flying for Pan Am and was off flying, but home at night. And I found that the U.S. military had a 2-year master's program in education and counseling. It wasn't nursing, but it was there for me. When we came home, what was I going to do now with my new master's degree? A friend came to me and said, we're desperate for a med-surg instructor, medicine and surgery. I said, I can't do that. I haven't been near a hospital in 5 years. Yes, you can. Anyway, with a bit of anxiety, I did start that job. After about 3 years, another friend came to me and said, you're the only nurse I know. He was on the board of the Arthritis Foundation. We would like to develop a health professional program there, and would you write me a job description? Well, I didn't really know anything about arthritis, but I looked it up. I wrote the job description, said it's really interesting. I applied, and I became director of both professional education and community and patient services for a 20-county area in eastern Pennsylvania. I wore a suit. I had a business card. Wow. 5 years later, it amazingly happened again. A rheumatology colleague came to me and said, I'm starting a lupus study center at Hahnemann University. I want a research person with me. Would you write me a job description? Well, I did. I applied for it, and then I got that job. So discovering the pleasure of research, I guess involved in all of this, I really discovered there's joy in research. You gather information, you study it, and you learn things. We moved the Lupus Study Center to Thomas Jefferson University, and one day a nice man called on the phone and said, Philadelphia's had the grant money long enough, it's going to Pittsburgh. My job was funded by grant money, and I was now laid off. But never fear, I was soon approached for a position at the National Transplantation Pregnancy Registry. As a background for that, a young woman had come to a transplant surgeon at Jefferson. She had had a kidney transplant, had been pregnant, and was made to have an abortion. And was that necessary? Nobody knew. So he started this organization. And we started studying. We started with about 200 people who had had pregnancies after an organ transplant. Was it known whether the immunosuppressive drugs that they took was going to harm the fetus, was the pregnancy going to harm the mother, was she going to lose her graft, her organ that was transplanted. None of that was known. So that was 25 years ago, and I had fallen into, and I'll read this because I thought of it so much, it was not only a professional job that gave me tremendous recognition, but it also has given me an enormous sense of personal fulfillment. So we actually, there are 6 heart-lung recipients who've had babies. There's a young woman in the registry who, at 8 days old, had a heart transplant, and she has a baby. So we were really studying drugs. The drug companies did fund us. We were studying the drugs and whether the immunosuppression would harm the fetus. And most of them do not, but we found that one medication called mycophenolate mofetil caused a 50% miscarriage rate and also produced fetal anomalies. We were able to alert the FDA, which contacted the transplant centers all over the world, and now there's no more birth defects. My name is on that paper. So that became the joy of academic writing. I like to have my name on a paper. I like to see it in print. I like to write. I can diagram sentences, thanks to pen. Over the years, I've been fortunate enough to have been a co-author on 40 peer-reviewed articles. I presented numerous papers at professional conferences, such as the American Society of Transplantation. My main role now at 80, I never thought I'd be 80. I think it's astonishing. I still color my hair because I can't go there with gray hair. At any rate, we now have more than 2,000 people in the registry, and it's been a pleasure to be part of that. So I just want to say one thing. I also put health up there, health prerogatives.
Right.
But I'm sure you've had enough of that today, so you don't need me.
Thank you all very much, and thank you all for coming. And please keep the conversation going.